Everybody celebrated when they put baby changing stations in bathrooms at airports. But I want to know about these foot washing stations that they were talking about. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but can you please?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's supposed to be funded by private money.
Correct,
Supposedly.
but
So what it is in Islamic religion,
foot washing station.
you have these wudu, I think it's wudu foot washing ceremonies that before they pray, they have to wash their hands, their arms, their face, their feet. And so what they were doing, I've never seen it, not that I travel a lot, so maybe somebody can chime in, but I guess they were just washing their feet in the regular sinks and then doing what they're doing. Look, I mean,
Yes.
it's more, to me, I think it's more of a power move. I mean, I have very strong feelings about the ideology of Islam, not about Muslims. That's why you'll never hear me talk about Muslims. But the ideas, again, I dig down into ideas. And then you think to yourself, what accommodations have been made for Christians or Hindus or Buddhists or anything else? I mean, so it's once again this exacting control and this power move that under in the DFW area, hey, you better be careful. That's Dearborn, Michigan territory now. I mean, there's a lot of people talking about what's going on up in North Dallas, and it's real. It's very real, and that's why that epic city, I'm glad, was stopped. I mean, they were going to create nothing but an Islamic enclave where you just 1,000 people there, and there's like a little fort, and you had to be this, you had to be that. I mean, this is it. Look, guys, again, for the Alamo Talks, for everybody, we've got to understand what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
You've got to look at patterns. You have to look at history. You have to. This has been played out before. No one has to wonder or guess or whatever. And when Islamic law and ideas are implemented into a society, how does that society function? I have 2 daughters. Women's lib. I mean, God loves women. I mean, obviously, we need them to procreate, regardless of what people think. I don't want women covered up. Because the man can't control his loins, and the reason why they have to cover up is because then if not, then he's going to have his way with her, including little girls. What are you saying? That you're such an animal that you can't control yourself? You have to cover a woman up head to toe, and that they don't get. I mean, you've seen pictures of these couples and these families where the man is at the beach with the child, and the woman is wading in water, holding up her whatever, and then only her eyes in the sun.
I've seen that.
How is that? How is anybody
Port
okay with
Aransas.
that? How? Because that's where it goes. Oh, that doesn't happen. Go study an Islamic country. Understand Sharia law. Whether I believe in God's prescription to society, but I support in the sense of the Constitution allows, marches, pride parade, whatever, as long as it's not, sexual and things of that nature. But how many pride parades are in Islamic countries? 0. I'll just save you the Google. It's 0. And how are they treated? And how many of them? I'm just telling you, this is not a recipe for freedom. It's not. So just because conservatives and dare I say Christians are pushing back on this Islamic push and educating people, don't just side with it because you don't like the conservative Christian. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Let's get the playing field right so we can go back to debating other stuff. But this is not it. This is not conducive for the Western culture and for a constitutional republic. It's not. We've played that experiment before. We can give you a list of broken countries where they used to be maybe not Christian, but just at least agnostic and not Islamic, and now they're lost to it from things like Syria, Morocco, Afghanistan, Jordan, Egypt. All of these were not Islamic countries in the past, but because of stuff like this, exacting power, force at some point when they have enough momentum, then this is what happens. And again, I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about ideology. So
how did it get so far as to it even being a thing? Like, what happens if it wasn't in the news?
It is a thing already. I mean, and Greg Abbott has just weighed in the last 24 hours.
Right,
what did he say?
right.
I didn't see it.
That it's not going to happen.
Quote, government-owned airports cannot favor one religion over all others. He wrote, DFW plans to install Islamic wudu washing facilities. That's illegal. I've directed a review of all state grants to both airports for possible revocation and referred DFW and IAH to U.S. Department of Transportation for investigation. His point being that there are government grants. There's no funder identified. So while they claim it's privately funded, he's calling bullshit on that.
Yeah, but see, this only happens unless if there was a governor that was Democrat, this would
100%.
Right.
Ideas have consequences.
Yeah.
And the carriers of those ideas are not all created equal.
No.
So I'm glad he's weighed in because I think it's a legitimate argument. This isn't about I'm against Islam. That's not the
If
argument.
Tallarico was governor, this would happen.
This would
100%.
this would be wonderful, and it'd be totally
Yep.
miraculously constitutional, even though it isn't. So Abbott is simply weighing in, saying that there's a grant system at play here that funds a lot of operations and a lot of construction facilities at airports. And so he's wanting an investigation of this because the private funder hasn't been identified. Miraculously, by the way, the price tag has dropped from $300,000 to $115,000. Overnight, $185,000 discount, interestingly enough. So not only has it become miraculously cheaper, but it's also very questionable it's going to happen, only because I think he weighed in and because I do believe that this won't stand. To Nico's question, where's the accommodation? Where's the accommodation? Look, I've been to DFW many, many times. And what I've noticed is that you go into these chapels, and that's what's there right now. There is, quote unquote, an interfaith chapel. Christians don't even get a cross. They used to, not anymore. So now at DFW,
But who's taking over those chapels?
Exactly. So you
it's-
go
there's
into
no other religion.
So it's quote unquote interfaith. But I have seen Muslim prayer rugs. There's little closets and cabinets with a bunch of Muslim prayer rugs in there. So there's accommodations that are being made. This is not abnormal. This has happened plenty of times in European countries. If you look at European countries right now, they're farther ahead in terms of the Islamic conquest cycle. The first step, and I believe, Nico, we are in the first step right now. We're seeing this. There's a strategic alignment between Islamic forces or Islamic activists, like the Council on American Islamic Relations, and political views that overlap in their objectives under the banner, in this particular case, of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is all under inclusion. See, this is all being done because we want to be an inclusive society.
But under that recipe, they include to exclude. That's the problem. It's kind of like a quid pro quo. Okay, yeah, we'll include you, but we're going to exclude you.
And that's where this ultimately goes. And so what's happening is at some point, there's a building of political clout. Nico's already pointed out Dearborn, Michigan is farther along. The country isn't, but Dearborn, Michigan is a great experiment to see where the next stage is. Because what happens is political clout is established. And now you move from this idea of alignment to enforcement. You have literally a city that is 60% Muslim at this point, where the mayor is Muslim, where they have a town hall, and a gentleman comes up who happens to be white and Christian and says he's got a problem with one of their intersections being named after a terrorist sympathizer. By the way, it's an established terrorist sympathizer. You brought the receipts. What was he told? I know you're from here, but we don't want you here, and we want you to leave. They told him to get his ass out of town.
I'll celebrate. I'll celebrate when you leave.
And you're not welcome here. So...
And they play the morning chant, even though it was against city ordinance, on the main square.
The Ayaan. Yep.
The what?
The Ayaan.
The Ayaan. Yes. And so this is this is my point. Mamdani, the same thing. So and I don't know where all these groups are that are anti-religion, separation of church and state. Those same groups that spew that shit against Christianity, they don't do that against Islam. Why? Because they're on the same side. My enemy's enemy is my friend. But as soon as that they, quote unquote, a team gets rid of the Christian, they're scred. They're next.
100%. And that's
exactly the recipe.
You remember that crazy dude from Minneapolis, the mayor from Minneapolis, Jacob Fry. So about in 2023, he and his council voted to allow the Ayaan. But here's the thing. From 3:30 in the morning to 11 a.m., 5 times. Do you think it would be okay for church bells to be ringing loudly through a city at 3:30 in the morning?
How about the Lord's Prayer? How about we say the Lord's Prayer?
It wouldn't happen, right?
Well, first of
Yeah.
all, there's more history and there's more precedent for that because this is a Christian nation. I don't care what anyone. We'll have another show on that. Doesn't mean you have to be a Christian. But I'm just telling you, there's plenty of evidence to support that.
Yes.
And the ideology that our founding fathers thought of, just the Mayflower Compact tells you that initially. So all that to say is we need to have these discussions. We need to talk about it. We need to do it reasonably and sensibly. And we have to think about the next 30, 40 years. I'm serious.
Yeah. And at this rate, it won't even be that long. We're talking about over 4,000 mosques in the United States right now. That's not funny. So this is about gaining. These are power centers that aid activists and friendly politicians in gaining institutional footholds. And once that happens, then what? Because the ultimate here is dominance.
Yes.
It's strategic alignment. You
Europe.
find overlaps with a friendly party, i.e. the Democrat Party, under the banner of inclusion. Who doesn't want to be inclusive? Come on, right? Pretty soon you move from that, And now you're enforcing. You have enough clout that you're enforcing things. You have politicians in power. And then the ultimate stage is you move from enforcement to dominance. Now it's not so democratic anymore. And interesting, ironically, is that the people who help them get there in the name of inclusion are the first to be discarded.
Yeah, that's exactly
That's
right.
what happens. People need to think this through.
Yeah.
We're not being conspiratorial. We're not just bloviating out of nothing. There's tons of historical.
I mean, look
precedents.
at all the senators and the representatives of the traditional Democrat Party that have been booted in primaries. They're not being supported. They're done. If Pelosi ran again, she'd lose probably.
That's a good point.
I mean, think about this. It's a takeover. It's a complete takeover. I mean, I'm telling you, I tell this story all the time. When I was in office, I was the district attorney. I went to a Northwest Democrat meeting, I think, and I was just giving an update. I wasn't running for anything. I wasn't running for re-election at that time. It was just an update. I wanted to be involved. I went to something at Lion and Rose as well. I went everywhere. Whoever invited me, I went, right? And so I remember that they were introducing the groups, and they were all Democrat there. And this young dude was there, happened to be a white guy, but he was like, we're here for, he said his name, whatever, Democrat of whatever, because I was looking at my notes. And he goes, and we're here for a hostile takeover of the Democrat Party. I mean, everyone's ass cheeks went like, what? And I looked up, I was with Chris, and I honestly said, what the F did he say? I said, what did he say? And he goes, I think did he say what I said? And everybody's like nervous, and the host, the older lady, she's like, okay, thank you. Man, I would have taken his nuts. I would have said, what did you say? Like, not here, Jack. And then you can leave if you want to. You can stay or not, but you're not doing that here in this town. And then he asked me, he's the one that asked me the question whether I supported people that could marry someone that was young. And I mean, you mean pedophilia? Well, many people don't believe it's pedophilia. What do they call it? Younger person attractions or whatever they say it is. I don't know. They come with some bullshit to justify pedophilia. And I said, not while I'm DA. I said, no. Are you talking about like a 16-year-old get permission from their parents because they're going to the military, whatever? No, I'm talking about, it's like, I don't know what I said. I said something pretty harsh, but I walked out of there telling Chris, I said, Chris, this is a problem. You watch. And sure enough, man, you saw it spreading all over. It was everywhere.
But the snowball effect is what is scaring me the most, because
That was less than 10 years ago.
I don't see that. I don't see it stopping. I don't see anybody. It seems the snowball is growing bigger, yet the fight against it is just now starting.
No, and what's happening is they use laws, and there's precedent that's happening in the United Kingdom right now, which is concerning. They use laws, and they use those laws to gain footholds and to work within those laws. So there's an Arbitration Act of 1996 in the United Kingdom, and so now there's a Muslim arbitration tribunal that was founded 11 years later. And it's used to found or to support Sharia councils in places like London and Birmingham and Manchester and so forth. And these Sharia councils are basically a parallel justice system where they're arbitrating on all kinds of issues. I mean, from family disputes to inheritance claims. And they're having significant impacts in entire societies because they are demographically dominant.
Well, how many times have I shared on the show before, and I talk about this often, when I was in office, look, I think, was it 2017 in Irving, Texas? It was like one vote shy. It was one vote shy of establishing a Sharia court in Irving, Texas. Where's that? Close to kind of DFW. Yeah. But I mean, that's where it was. One vote shy by city council. That's shameful. Everybody should have been on top of that. It's unconstitutional. And what a Sharia court says is exactly what George said, that Sharia law applies to this situation. And even with insubordination and abuse, so it could delve into the criminal justice center system, because if somebody has a justifiable use of force against the spouse for insubordination, say, which Sharia says is allowed, and you can, I mean, who's okay with that? I mean, let's just forget about labeling the idea. I would ask Alamo Talk, and I would ask anybody else in Alamo Talk, whether you want to believe it or not. He claims his faith in Christianity, and I believe him, and I've sat with him. We've prayed together before we ate. But when you think about this, who's okay with that? That if a dude that understands, that believes in this ideology, that is married to your daughter, and she doesn't do or says something or is insubordinate, whatever the hell that means, he can slap her and hit her and punch her. You okay with that? The answer better be no, or you're a shitty parent. There's just no way that's okay. That's just a bad idea, period, end of story. Forget about labeling the idea. That's why I try to take people caring to the ideas. Because once you take the label off, it's like, oh, what? What's that idea? So look, people really need to wake up. I hope Democrats realize that they need to take their party. I really hope and wish the classical Democrat, the classical liberal, either move to the independent party. You're welcome in the Republican voting system, or take back your party, man.
But I want to draw on what you just said about ideas and their consequences, and what Alama Talk said earlier about open borders. I mean, this is what we're dealing with right now is precisely the result of having that view. See, and I from what you described him, he's a compassionate, good guy, and so he means well. And it's kind of a utopian view in reality, isn't it? I mean, I don't want any open borders, but I still want safety. I want everybody to just get along. Yeah, I want that too. But the reality is there are actually evil people out there who want to do you harm, and the ones that you love harm. So now what? I mean, we have to deal in reality. I can't see the world as I want it to be. I have to see it as it is. And that has to be my starting point. I can't start in the future because I don't own the future. I just don't. Jesus says, I don't, that's all in God's hands. So I have to be a good steward of the reality that is now. And the reality is now is that there are evil people who want to do people in this country harm. And so let's just, can we deal with the reality for a moment? There would be no Zoran Mamdani, there would be no lunacy in the New York City that we've seen in recent elections if we had controlled our borders. Yeah, that's right. There would be no Mamdani, a Ugandan-born anti-American lunatic. If we managed our borders and we said we don't want this type of person here, you can accuse me of being racist all you want. I don't give two shits. I really don't. This is not a racial argument. This is a cultural argument. This is an ideology argument. And there are ideologies that are not compatible with the constitutional system of the United States. And so there's nothing in the Constitution that says it's a good idea to destroy the Constitution.
Well, that's why Ben Carson, even though he didn't articulate it well, when he said years ago that a Muslim, he should have said someone that believes in Islam ideology, but he said Muslim could not be president. He wasn't being whatever they labeled
Racist
him.
or
Yeah, he
whatever.
wasn't. He was saying the ideas of Islam, they cannot pledge to protect and defend the Constitution. They can't. It has to be Sharia. It's completely different ideology. They can't do that. And so that's why ideologically cannot be president of the United States, not under a constitutional republic with a Bill of Rights and a constitution, because they're not compatible.
When it comes to control, it may not necessarily just be running for office and gaining power that way. Randy on Facebook said the car business in Texas has doubled in Muslim-run companies in the last 5 years, doubled. And it has something to do with them knowing how to get around the law and licensing. Like they'll all be under one license, and then when that one gets ruined, they'll put it in another name. I mean, that's how we all learned about the fraud that the Somalians were doing in Minnesota. But without looking at public office, don't you think that they're also taking control of our businesses?
Well, I don't know anything about the car business in that regard, but all I can say is that, when you think about places like Somalia and a bunch of other similar countries in the Middle East and in Africa, they're low-trust countries. High violence, low trust, high fraud, high corruption. And this is part and parcel. As you have to say, ideas of consequences. Politics follow from the governing theology or the governing worldview. And so if at the heart of your worldview is dominance and control and screw your neighbor, then you're going to see a society that looks like that. The United States, again, getting back, is a Judeo-Christian founded nation. We care about our neighbor
Even
because
Richard
our neighbor's
Dawkins
an image bearer.
Richard Dawkins, who's he passed away, right? I mean,
No, I think
he's
he's
still with
still
us.
there.
Okay, maybe we still have a chat with him.
Former emeritus professor of biology at Oxford.
He debates, famous atheist. He even says, "I'm a cultural Christian." That's an interesting. Peterson, what's his name?
Jordan
Peterson. Before, I don't know where he's at. I haven't seen him in years. Actually, I think he's sick. But he always advocated for cultural Christianity at the very least, because it made sense and it was conducive for a society. That tells you something, that ideas mean something and that not all ideas are the same. He didn't say I'm a cultural Islamist. He said I'm a cultural, this Dawkins and Peterson, I'm a cultural Christian, because the ideas of Christianity will flourish a culture. That's what he's saying. And that matters. That conversation needs to be had. But a cultural Christian means you got the ideas from where? Christianity. Now, it doesn't mean you have to accept Christ as your savior. That's your own personal choice. But this country, at the very least, even though it wasn't just this, was at least a cultural Christian country.
That's right. 100%. We've given a lot of sources for people because we could talk about this for 2 hours, and this is not going to go away. This is a critical topic to watch and become educated in. Nico shared some sources. I shared some sources. I want to add one that I think is fantastic. Speaking of Somalia, you guys will probably know Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She is a conservative writer, former politician. She's exceptional, very articulate on this, and she's a former Muslim. Please go to reformingthewest.com. Reformingthewest.com. You not only learn about her, but she's also a prolific writer and contributor to topics like this. Very articulate, very informed, heavy on the data. She brings the receipts. So please inform yourself. Be aware of what's going on, and so we can be all better stewards of this amazing country that God's blessed us with.